Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sporting Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderbloom, joined once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton. This week on the podcast, there are sporting Kansas City soccer things to discuss this week, because Sporting Kansas City rang in the new year with the announcement all SKC fans have been eagerly awaiting ever since the day David Lee was named the president of soccer operations and general manager. Raphael Wicky is officially the new head coach of Sporting Kansas City, joining on a 2.5-year deal that'll take him through the first sort of new season of MLS with an option for an additional year. To say this announcement had been anxiously anticipated would be putting it mildly. So you can expect the majority of this podcast this week to be discussing this hire, the amount of time it took to accomplish it, and kind of what our thoughts are on the hire in general, as well as our expectations going forward. So, Cody, let's just get straight to it. As I noted, extremely eagerly anticipated announcement for the fan base. It's the first new head coach since 2009.
And by fan base, you mean our Discord, basically.
Our Discord. Well, I mean,
I'm struggling to see where like anybody else in the whole city gives a shit. But you know,
Sporting Kansas City fans care about it, and there were certainly. I mean, if you go to outside of our Discord, now granted, this is your weekly reminder to join the Discord, participate in the conversation. There's a number of very fervent Sporting Kansas City fans in our Discord that were very eagerly anticipating this announcement and really ready for it to happen. I mean, you could definitely call our Discord the sickos of the Sporting Kansas City fan base for sure. And I say that with pride, by the way. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I'm just saying that, you know, the sickos of the fan base exist there. But I also would say that, you know, I don't go on X very often, but I mean, you can see even anytime there's any sort of commentary, there's conversations about where's a coach. You can go to any social media platform. Sure. Yep. Whenever there was anything that the club would put out, there was always the conversations about the coach. Reddit, as much as I loathe to spend time on Reddit, the commentary was much about where the coach is, right? This has been something that they've been waiting for some time. So
well, this was the last club to not have a coach, not have signed a coach.
Correct.
And
Matt
the first,
Demline made that.
And the first of all of those to not have a coach. So I mean,
Matt Demline made that point many times. I'm aware of that fact. And it's their first new head coach since before the rebrand.
Yeah,
I think Daniel Sperry said something in his article about the fact that this is the fifth head coach in Sporting Kansas City history. It's actually the fifth coach in franchise history. It's only the second coach in Sporting Kansas City history.
Yeah.
So, of course, it blew everyone's hair back, and we're all doing the happy dance now, right?
Yeah. The Discord's just nothing but happy dances. Matt Demline is he's the leader of the conga line, you know?
Yeah. So Raphael Wicky, let's go through it a little bit. So this is a coach who he's been in the coaching market for quite some time. He got his first sort of taste of first team head coaching in 2017, I believe, with Basel. He had been so for those of you who don't know much about Wicky, he was a fairly successful professional soccer player. He was a defensive midfielder, played both in Switzerland as well as the Bundesliga, and then finished his career at the noteworthy Chivas USA. After that, he got into youth coaching. He was at the youth sides in Switzerland and ended up being Basel's youth coach, and then took over that club and was there for about 18 months. I believe got them into Champions League the first year he was there, and then was let go about 18 months into his tenure there. He became the U17 U.S. national team coach. Took that team to the U17 World Cup, coached players such as Gio Reyna and Gianluca Busio at that World Cup, Ricardo Pepi, a number of others, and then was a Chicago Fire, went from that job to becoming the Chicago Fire head coach, and took over that job the year of COVID. So he had 2 regular season games, and then COVID happened, and then had to try to kind of manage that situation. Went through the 2021 season, was let go at the end of that season. There's some question about whether or not that was related to some personal issues. His father was in poor health, passed away not long after, so he wanted to go back to Switzerland to be with him. And then not long after took over the job at FC Young Boys, which is one of the two best teams in Switzerland. Basel and Young Boys are the top two teams in Switzerland. It's very much like a lot of other European leagues where a couple teams they're noteworthy sort of top teams. And Young Boys has long been one of those top teams in Switzerland. Won the league the first year, went to Champions League. And then was unfortunately let go in sort of towards the end of his second season in charge of that club, and has not had a job since. I say all that to say that there's, I would say, a checkered history regarding his success and then sort of removal from many positions, which may have a lot of fans going, I don't know about this guy. And I would understand why you would come to that conclusion. What are your thoughts, Cody, as you look at this hire and kind of what was your initial reaction to it?
I think that when his name was first floated, I remember him primarily as the sort of failed Chicago Fire coach. So I was not.
Needless to say, there have been many failed Chicago Fire coaches.
Absolutely true. This is absolutely true. So I was not. He would not have been my choice, right? In terms of the people who we heard rumored for the job. I think that when you look at his coaching history, it's kind of a mixed bag, and it's really kind of difficult to get a read on frankly on like how good of a coach he is, right? Like he seems to do okay with when he has more talent than his opponents, and that is, he does not seem to be the kind of coach that really raises the level of the team. But, the sample sizes and the context that we're looking at are really small and, really strange contexts for the most part. And so, like, I think I texted you that, I mean, he's kind of like, you can kind of read what you want, right? If you want to be excited about this hire, there are things in his coaching history to make you excited, right? The fact that he was successful with two Swiss teams that play high level within that country, the fact that he has coached in Champions League, he's coached successfully in Champions League, he coached a team that beat Mourinho and Pep at one point in time. Those are things that like you could be excited about, right? And on the flip side of that,
there are very few MLS coaches that have that on their resume.
Like I would say none. Like find me one. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. But I mean, there are a few MLS coaches that have Champions League coaching experience, much less managing and getting results against those two amazing managers. But on the flip side, that there are definitely some red flags. The context around his time at the Chicago Fire is I think super important. It was around COVID, and the Chicago Fire at that time were just an absolute dumpster fire of a club and a roster, and he did not have I don't think he had a good roster by really any measure, and but at the same time he did not it did not seem that his coaching sort of moved the needle with that team until maybe the very end before he left, and so there is that. He did coach the youth national team, the U17s. They didn't play exceptionally well at all. But they were in a very difficult group, and so there are caveats, right, to all of his red flags, and so I think at the end you kind of just walk away being like I don't know, right? Like I had a just a kind of a negative gut feeling about him when I first heard his name mentioned with the job, and then after doing some research on him as a manager, I'm just kind of like whatever, right? It's just I'm not moved either way. I think that he is probably. I keep coming back to the fact that that like he is Lee's hire, right? And I think that the the big signing is Lee and not Wiki. And so, if Lee is choosing Wiki as the manager that he would like to work with, I think I'm kind of okay with it. But I do think that and this was sort of my thoughts on it mirror Lowry's thoughts, which he shared today, and that he's not he's not going to move the needle just he's not going to get you wins just by virtue of his coaching necessarily. He's not going to really move the needle in terms of like player development. Like this is not like Bruce Arena, right? This is not like that's not who this is. This is someone who you have to buy. This is a cook who you have to really provide top level ingredients to get the best out of, and it's Lee's responsibility to do that. And so it just puts more of the onus back on the front office to identify and sign quality players. And so, I mean, from that aspect, it's kind of disappointing because it kind of, kicks the can further down the road given the state of the roster. But but that's kind of where I land on it, right? Is it's not like this is not something I think that's going to. He's not a manager that's really going to markedly move the needle on his own or improve the team on his own. He's gonna have to have players to work with.
I mean, realistically, if you look at Lee's history as a CSO in New York City, how many of those coaches left that job and became something significant elsewhere?
Yeah. Absolutely, but that's a different infrastructure that he has at his.
It is, but my point is, if you're talking about someone who has 6 years of history or 7 years of history as a chief soccer officer,
yeah,
and the way he's gone about identifying coaches is more identifying ones that fit the player grouping and the style that he wants to create. Mm-hmm. And it's more about him doing his job at building the team around the coach than it is about the coach himself. You can see how someone like him would think about this, and it's more about getting the right fit for what he wants to accomplish, and less about getting a name that blows everyone's hair back. I think the other part of this is that because Wicky coached for the Fire, he comes with the baggage of having coached for the Fire.
Exactly.
It's impossible to remove that from his resume. Yeah. It exists. I think it's important to note that Raphael Wicky is just a couple years older than I am, and he coached for the Fire 5 years ago. I think he even said this in the press conference today when they asked him about what he learned from his time with the Fire. He's like, I processed that 5 years ago, and I took that to what I was doing 6 months later. Mm-hmm. I'm not thinking about that now. And I think that that's a fair response, because realistically, I think of the person I was in 2021 professionally, and I'm a completely different person now than I was then. And I think it's realistic to expect that some evolution has happened with Raphael Wicky over that time too. So how good of a coach he is or not, I really don't think it's, I don't know. I think your point is the most valid one, which is getting David Lee was the important part of this conversation. Mm-hmm. And what team he can put on the field for Wicky to coach is the most important part of this conversation. The coach is important. And I think for Sporting Kansas City fans, there's a significantly larger amount of weight applied to this role because the guy that was there before was head of everything.
Yeah.
So we're used to the head coach being this outsized personality that is the club. And that's not going to be the case with Raphael Wicky. That's not going to be the case. He's just going to be the coach. I was talking to Tim Hotze a little bit about him because obviously being that he was in Chicago for a while, Tim obviously has some, experience with him when he was with the Fire. And I was like, one of the things we both came down on is like, if he's just here for a couple years and then they get a new coach and move on, it may be the best thing for this fan base to just get used to the fact that the structure can withstand a new coach every couple years.
Well, and that's one thing that I kind of have been thinking to myself is that, by the time that this squad is potentially good again, like he's probably not even going to be here, right? Because this is just by virtue of coaching cycles and the way that jobs work, and because I mean, like to me, this club is still 3 years away probably from fielding a team that's like competitive at the top levels of the league. And so I
think realistically you and I might believe that. I'm not sure the fan base is willing to accept that, and I'm certainly sure
they're gonna get it real quick.
I'm certainly sure that David Lee is not thinking that way.
Sure,
like I don't believe
not.
that is the way, and especially within MLS where you can change your fortunes year to year fairly significantly.
Only if you sign players, Drew.
Well, I understand that they haven't signed them yet, but the season doesn't start for another 2 months. So and the fucking transfer, we don't even know when the transfer window closes. They still haven't really said
2 months. Oh, yeah. It's not 2 months. You wish.
Well, I guess it is like, what is it? The 20. I guess it's 6 weeks, isn't it? 6.5 weeks, something like that. Anyway, you're right. But my point is, like, also we know that what happens from until April almost doesn't matter anyway. So, like, realistically, but seriously,
see, we're doing it. We're carrying their water for them. We're just kicking the can. No. I'm giving you a hard time. But
soon as I heard the words come out of my mouth, I could also hear it, and I was like, God damn it, I'm doing the thing that they're gonna do. And I don't want to be that dismissive about it. I really don't. But I do think that I don't think that it's as urgent as some people make it seem to be regarding some of these. Like, yes, it would be nice if that stuff happened 3 months ago. And there's a legitimate conversation we're going to have here in a second about why it took this long to hire Raphael Wicky. This guy's been unemployed since March of 2024. There are legitimate questions to be asked here. But I also don't know that it's necessarily as huge of a deal that they don't have 28 guys going to camp on Sunday or Saturday. Well, when they report on Saturday, they go to camp, Sunday or Monday? I don't know how big of a deal that is in the grand scheme of things, especially if a lot of their players are coming from Europe and they're in the middle of their season. You know what I mean? From a fitness perspective, I mean, the first 2 weeks, the first phase of camp is literally nothing but fitness training. So, like, I don't know how much value we want to place on that time, other than it's a new coach and you want the new coach to be getting integrated with the players and doing all of the psychological things that we're going to discuss in a little bit too that are important for a coach to be doing.
The optics here matter. Like I know that you and I,
do they matter, or do they matter to make people feel better?
No, that's why they matter, right? They matter in order to absolutely to make people feel better. And it just...
Can I ask an honest question? And I really am not trying to be dismissive about this. For the people that this really matters to, are those people going to stop paying attention to this team?
No, because they're on the Discord, like I said.
So I'm not trying to dismiss the interests and of the people who listen to our podcast, because God knows we wouldn't be recording this, and I wouldn't be spending time editing it and doing all the things we do with the podcast if we didn't have a community around it that like was interested in it. So I'm not trying to dismiss those points of view. What I'm trying to say is, in the grand scheme of things, it's really satiating the need of you and I and the people like us to feel good about what the team's doing, right? And I'm not trying to say that it doesn't mean anything, because it does mean something, and it certainly will have an impact on where this team goes and how successful they are early in the season. I think it's impossible for that not to be the case. But I'm also like, I don't know it's as big of a deal as perhaps some would make it out to be, I guess is my point.
I mean... It's easy to say that now, but
sure.
after
I could be totally wrong.
When
I will 100% be wrong.
When the club starts, the first 10 games without a win, and tries to turn around and blame, lack of preseason, bringing in players late, blah, 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 yada, 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 new coach betting in, all this stuff. Like, at some point they have to stop providing themselves with excuses. Because it kind of seems like there's a
I
little
mean, it's
bit of
public
that.
relations, man. That's what
Sure.
it's always going to be. It's always going to be
Absolutely.
finding the next excuse. Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, goddamn, look at our political landscape right now, man. They'll just
I
change
would rather
their
not.
fucking tune 12 hours after saying one thing, go the exact opposite direction. So trust me, like it is the world we live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we can also call bullshit on it when it is bullshit. And I think I'll be the first person to raise my hand and be like, I was wrong. They should have been more aggressive about this.
Well, it's not even it's not even a binary. I mean, it's not even about being aggressive. It is actually more of a binary. Just do fucking something here, right? Like let's see some movement at all. And
okay, but okay, but those are two different things. So that's the thing. And I highlighted this with Matt when we kind of went back and forth on the Discord about it. There's a difference between quote unquote doing something and showing me something. Those are two different things.
This is true.
Okay, so just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean that they're not doing it. Sure. It just means they're not telling you about it.
You would hope so, like because if that would be the case, if they weren't doing it, then
why is Lee in a press conference saying that they're going to make double-digit player acquisitions and it's just taking longer than they expected to get some of them moving? Like he wouldn't say that publicly that they're going to make double-digit player acquisitions.
You don't know that. Like he's a new coach. He's a new CSO.
He's new to you.
No,
he's not new. He's not new. He's been
doing
this shit for 6 fucking years.
He's new to this. This is new for all of us, right? Who knows what the fuck he's saying? He might just be talking out of his ass, just like you and I are talking out of our asses.
He might be, but the fact that you're not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, that's the point that I'm getting to, is that I totally understand where, like, again, this gets back to the baggage. Like, Raphael Wicky has baggage. He was a former MLS coach for the Chicago Fire that was not very good.
Yeah.
Right? It is impossible to eliminate that baggage. I said this to you when we were talking about it a couple days ago. I said, if we were hiring Freyr Alexanderson from Braun, everyone would be much higher on the higher. The takes would be much more positive, right?
Because there's no familiarity. There's no
you don't know who he is.
No context.
You just know that he's been a coach in the Norwegian top flight, and Drew went and ground some Y Scout film on him and likes his tactical style. That would be all you would know about him.
Yep.
So then all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm really excited about this. But because we're talking about a guy you've heard of before, you've got the baggage that comes along with it. Similarly, in this situation for David Lee, he's carrying the baggage of Peter Vermees, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah,
this club has operated in one very specific way by one very specific leader for 17 years. So when you continue similar trends, not sharing information and being slow to make decisions and quote unquote to the exterior, like externally, it appears that is what's happening. You create an environment where people are concerned.
Yep.
And I think it's fair for us to highlight all of those things. And I think it's fair to be realistic about, these are things that you need to deal with. As if you're going to be the president of this club on a 7-year deal, or president of soccer operations, I should say, you're going to have to deal with this, right? You're going to have to deal with the sort of malaise and just sort of frustration that comes with operating in a similar manner to the guy that just left.
Yeah.
That candidly probably should have left several years prior and has sort of created this level of mistrust in the fan base. So I think that all of those things are happening at the same time. And I think all of those exist. And I think we should be, I think it's realistic to at least highlight all of them. When it comes to Raphael Wicky, I'm in the same place you are. I think of like the anime meme with the butterfly, like Raphael Wicky. Is he good?
Who knows? He's Schrodinger's coach. Maybe he's good. Maybe he's not. Depends on how you look at it.
I'm not sure. We're going to get to the does a manager matter conversation in a little bit, because I think it's really important when we're talking about Raphael Wicky. Okay, so why did it take this long, right? And Matt Demline has a point here. Why did we take 3 months to hire Raphael Wicky? Like, this guy's been unemployed since March of 2024, like almost 2 years. So if this was the coach you were going to hire, why does it take this long when every other coach in the leagues, every other coaching position in the league has already been filled? And I think it's a fair conversation. It's a fair question. I think no one's going to want to hear the answer, because it is a little bit like historical Sporting Kansas City, right? And I think I said this a couple weeks ago. I think, like, if you want a club that is going to act quickly and just jump on the next guy and just be very aggressive, this is not your club.
Nope.
This is not your club. This is not the way it is. They are going to be very programmatic. They're going to be very thoughtful. They're going to bring as many decision makers, or they're going to bring as many people in to sort of validate decisions as they can. It's just how they operate, man. It's just how they are. If you don't like that way of doing things, you're going to have to find another club to root for. I don't know what to say about that. And that is exactly what happened here. There was a process. David Lee even said this in his introductory press conference. I have a process by which I evaluate things and make decisions. And he followed his process. That's the best thing I can tell you about it. I do think right around the time that Tom Bogert leaked the fact that Wicky was one of the finalists, there were 3 finalists at that time. What I've been able to gather, and this was like beginning of December, basically, right? What I've been able to gather is Wicky was one of 3, and like each week they flew in a different finalist to come in, do their presentations, do sort of an immersion and a sort of back and forth, and really sort of meet with all the principals and really figure out which one was the best fit. And so it took all that time, and then we've got the holidays, and we've got immigration, and we've got all of the other things related to contracts that happened, and that's why it happened the way it did. Probably if this club was a little bit more transparent with the media, they probably could have announced it several weeks ago, but that's not who they are. It's just the way it is. I don't know what to tell you. It's just the way it is. They're going to announce it the day before he's going to be sitting in a press conference ready to talk. Just how they work. And if you're looking for something else, like I said, you probably need to find a new club to root for. It's just not how they manage information. So,
you can join Daniel Sperry and root for Manchester United, who leak everything constantly. So,
and are an absolute shit show of an organization.
Yeah, that too. That went without saying. Sorry, I should have maybe mentioned it, but you know.
Bringing back Ole, I guess, to be the caretaker manager now.
Good times, man.
He was the only one that was any good of the last like 5 they've had. So
that is accurate.
I guess that makes sense. But I mean, anyways, yeah. I mean, your club could be just a complete fucking mess. Or, you know, or they could be the opposite end of the spectrum, which is completely closed off to any information and just sort of very conservative. I understand where the arguments come from against how Sporting does things. And I understand from a fan's perspective how unsatisfying it is to not receive any type of information as to what's going on. It's the nature of this club. I don't see that ever changing, or at least not changing anytime soon. So, well, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I mean, my main one was like, when I was made aware that it was probably him, I was like, I have some questions about why it took this long. And that is why I went and asked those questions. It seems like maybe this could have been closed much earlier in December, but they went through the process and they did the full evaluation.
Yeah.
And
I think
I can at least appreciate that they went through their process.
I think that's it was just one of many dominoes that had to fall, right? And so the fact that they had to wait so long to get Lee in the fold, I think pushed everything back. And once Lee was in the fold, Lee insisted on doing things, like you said, following his process, and that's just a time-intensive process. And to maybe your earlier point a little bit, the fact is that like I mean, it matters, but it kind of doesn't matter, right? Like this is not a team that's going to be vying for silverware or maybe even the playoffs, um, you know, before the next 2 to 3 windows anyway. And so it's I think from the club's standpoint, it's worth taking their time and doing their due diligence, and making sure that everybody's on the same page and that they have who they want and what they want before they sort of move forward with everything else. And it's frustrating as hell, but like, what I mean, would things look significantly different if Wiki? I mean, see, the thing is like Wiki wasn't. I mean,
well, we've used this example several times, but I want to highlight it again. Jesper Sorensen was hired on January 14th of 2025.
Yes, but he also had a full roster that he had his disposal.
He did, but he had also only coached a first team once. Well, I mean, I guess at Frederica, sort of. Like, I mean, it's like there's a Danish club that's sort of a first team, but I mean, he'd only coached a first division first team once in his life. Like, we were all going, who the fuck is Jesper Sorensen?
Yeah.
So like, and for all we know, Vancouver might not be near as good next year, but also, we may be giving Jesper Sorensen way too much credit for how good Vancouver was last year, right? Like, that may be a thing too. We'll get to that conversation again as far as how much managers matter. But I don't think I think we're correlating the fact that we don't have players to the fact that they were waiting to hire a coach first. I just don't believe that's true, and that does not seem to be the case based on David Lee's comments in the press conference today. He's like, I did not let this announcement stopped me from trying to move forward with the roster.
No, because he was always going to hire a coach who was on the same page with him in terms of, game model or vibes or tactics.
This is David Lee's team, not Raphael Wicky's team.
Absolutely. And so it doesn't, like I said, to some degree, it just doesn't matter. And, I think that, like, frankly, that is a modern way to run a football club, and that's the way that I think months ago I advocated for, running the club more like a Premier League side like Brighton or some shit like that, right? Where you just have a system, a style, a way of doing
Brentford's
things, and
a really good example of it.
You just bring in players, bring in coaches, move players out, move coaches out. The system is the same, the club is the same, but everything else can change. And I think that you're right in identifying that that's difficult for us to kind of grapple with, because it's like 180 degrees from what we're used to with this club.
It's completely antithetical to how the club has run for the last 17 years. Right.
And also it's antithetical, like the other big club in the big like the other big sports entity in the town, the Chiefs, is like NFL is like the head coach is the head coach, right? Like it's a completely different kind of thing, and
the
that's
sport's so different, right? I think the sports are so different that I think Andy Reid has a much bigger impact on what happens on the field every play than what a soccer coach has. I think even Vermees has said this in the past, but definitely the Pep Guardiolas and the whatnot of the world have said this. Once the game starts, I don't do much of anything.
No. If you've ever coached soccer, like, you know that's the case. You just yell at players, and always the players who are nearest to you. That's why Seth Sinovic was Seth Sinovic, because he could handle being screamed at for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Shallowy has talked about this. It's like he only hears him when he's on his half of the field, and even then he ignores him most of the time. Like, it is the nature of soccer. Soccer is such a fluid game. It is not set plays other than set pieces, which is, that's a whole separate conversation about the sort of footballization of the American footballization of football worldwide when it comes to set pieces. Whole separate thing. But coaches don't have much impact when the game starts. Once the whistle blows, we like to think they do a lot more than they do. What they do is preparing for that game and setting the tactical plan and choosing the players to play in the positions and whatnot. Like that is, and motivating them and figuring out which ones are in the best psychological state to be the most effective. And all of that is really much more important part of being a coach. And obviously trying to develop players and training and all of those kinds of aspects are things that the coach is required to do. But that's where it differs a little bit from an NFL head coach. Andy Reid is making decisions in the game that impact the game.
Yeah, he's calling plays.
Peter Vermees, Raphael Wicky are not doing that.
Nope.
They're with subs is about the only way that they're really impacting the game. But anyway, there was some conversation around the fact that David Lee was familiar with Wicky. Wicky was supposedly, and I had heard this before, was part of the interviewing process for the NYCFC job. They really downplayed that in the press conference today.
Did. Yeah. In fact, Wicky underlined his interactions with Lee when Wicky was the U.S. youth national team coach,
but nothing about that. And Lee acted like, well, he wasn't even really a part of that. And
right.
Most of the reporting I've heard is not necessarily accurate. I think even ESPN reported that he was a finalist for that job. I don't know. They were downplaying it, and I mean, for whatever reason, it's obvious that Lee liked the ideas that Wicky had. Mm-hmm. There's spent a lot of time in the press conference today talking about culture and then talking about being a possession-oriented team that presses a lot. I think that those are all sort of in alignment with what you've seen from David Lee's teams in the past for NYC, and it's also what you've seen him say that he wants this team to look like and what ownership wants this team to look like. Another thing that was...
can I break in real quick? Like none of that shit should be surprising at all. It's very modern football. It's very NYC.
It's also common in MLS.
Right. Like you can't be a possessing team and not like counter press. those two things go hand in hand. Because if you try that, you're going to suck shit. Like the Vermees teams of the last like 2 seasons where they didn't have the players or the legs to press.
They were ineffective at counter pressing. So, not necessarily that Vermees didn't want them to. They were just ineffective at it.
Correct. So yeah, everybody wants to possess and counter press, unless you're Minnesota or some shit. But
right, and most MLS teams care about the ball because it allows them some level of control of game state.
Right.
It allow like in a league where the margins are so small, being able to have control over as much of the game as possible is a positive. And being able to use the ball to settle the game down if you need to, being able to use the ball to manipulate the opponent, all of that is just, it's very important. Like you said, other than Minnesota, there's very few circumstances where MLS teams are actively playing against the ball.
Minnesota, Red Bull.
And I don't think Red Bull's going to look like that next year based on everything they're saying and the coach they hired and the
Philly's always going to look like that. They ain't changing.
Right. Well, because they're always going to be of the mindset of 23 and under of homegrowns, right. And they don't tactical and technical proficiency is hard to extract out of players mainly based on that sort of profile. So they need to run a sort of a murder ball mentality, but it's not. But it's rare, right? 30 teams in the league, there are very few that don't try to possess and don't try to use possession as a weapon, or as a means to control the game. So it's not really that surprising to hear Lee say that, but it's also then not surprising to see him hire a coach whose teams have historically really done that, right? Yeah. They've been very possession-focused, create a lot of chances, very aggressive counter-pressing teams are kind of what Wicky has coached in the past. And so finding a guy that sort of meets that. And then also culturally, there was a lot of talk of culture and team-first culture and whatnot.
A human level.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Drew, the moment I talked to you on a human level, I connected with you.
I mean, like,
But
we
can I
laugh.
can I just say, like, I thought that press conference was such a fucking
It's
ridiculous waste
bland
of
as
time,
hell.
dude.
It was super bland. I got a lot more out of David Lee's initial press
Yes,
conference than
I
I did out of
agree.
this one.
Yeah.
This was bland as hell. There was a lot of platitudes and typical coach speak, and just like, we're gonna bring a culture here, and it's gonna be team first, and I want to really like connect it because it's a player and a human, and I want to connect. Blah blah blah. Whatever, dude. I do believe that he's going to. I do believe that he's going to do those things, but none of those are relevant to us.
In their defense, like when you're getting asked questions about, whether you like our city or not, that's difficult.
There wasn't a whole lot of tactical identity
No,
conversation. What do you think of Kansas City? Oh, my wife's from California, and her friends. She has some friends from Kansas City, and they live there in California. They still say it's the best city. Cool. It's really fascinating deep dive info.
Kansas City loves itself more than any other.
Have you had barbecue yet?
I mean, seriously, like, I'm surprised that did not get asked.
So anyway, yeah, I'm with you. Like, the press conference was a complete waste of time. It was fine. They have to do it, and
sure,
I know
absolutely.
that and don't get me wrong, like, you got to get your new head coach in front of the media, and you do the thing and whatnot. But
and it's not
that was
the local news station.
That was the most. Yeah. But you know what's great about that? That was the most. European club hires a new head coach, and he sits in front of the press and says nothing for half an hour. Right. Like, it was that.
Yeah. That
was what it was. It's just like, whatever. Okay, new head coach. Okay, fine. Let's go on to the rest of our day. And I think that is a part to me that was the most noteworthy, which is, okay, he's our new head coach, and he may or may not be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And we're more concerned about what happens on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And if he sucks shit, we go get a different one.
Yep. I like it.
That is kind of how things go. I do think, as you noted, like, his ideas are much in alignment with what Lee wants the club to do. So that was one of the reasons he was chosen. The other thing was, he has, and this is not the first time, I listened to the interview he did with Tom Bogert when he was at Young Boys.
As did I.
And he also, thanks to Isaac for putting that in the Discord,
like
reminding me of that interview. I didn't even know about that interview, and he put it in the Discord, so it was great to listen to that. So you've got multiple circumstances of him talking about youth development being important to him. And I do think that probably tugs at least at your heartstrings a little bit, that, it's at least a stated goal of his. I don't know how successful he's been at it or how useful he's been at accomplishing it, but it does seem to be a stated goal, and it does seem to be a stated goal of David Lee's, right? And Lee's is much more pragmatic, which is the one that I've often used, and you and I have used on this podcast, which is, you need to develop homegrowns to be successful in MLS.
You have to.
These are guys that are not on the salary cap that can provide useful minutes to your club. You've got to find a way to maximize them.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, from Lee's perspective, it's much more pragmatic. From Wicky's perspective, it's like, hey, I've got an opportunity to kind of bring these young players along and give them an opportunity to show themselves. And I'm glad that that's the way he comes at it. I think one thing that we've seen since Vermees has left is the club has been much more aggressive in signing homegrown talent, bringing younger players in. We haven't even got to talk about Justin Reynolds, but yeah, it's not that big of a signing from any sort of like noteworthy perspective, but the backup right back should be a guy on the supplemental roster that's a youth player that has some upside. Totally that should be your backup right back. That's what you should be. And the fact they can play both sides, even better.
Yep. Amen.
Like, it doesn't need to be any deeper than that. It really doesn't. Sometimes we sort of overanalyze what all this stuff means, and, is he really valuable or not? It's a backup right back.
Right. It's about balancing the roster. It's about spending money. It's allocating. It's a resource allocation in your roster. It's like, where do you want to spend what I don't even know what it was, $60K a year on Tim Leibold as your backup left back.
$900,000 last year.
Right. So if you look if you look at the money that given to Leibold and to like Andrew Brody, right? Like
they did have Brody on the supplemental roster. RSL was covering a
okay.
bunch of his salary.
That's right. That's right.
They did have Brody, but Brody was literally the only right back on the roster.
Right.
They had Kyrie Shelton and Jake Davis sort of deputizing in that position, but Shelton was making $750 or something like that, and was not a right back.
Right.
It's just like, build your roster in a fucking somewhat coherent way, please. Yeah. Like that's all I'm asking.
That would be
nice. These are coherent roster decisions being made.
I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I expect we're going to see more coherent roster decisions that are also going to focus on youth players in specific areas. And they have a coach who seems to be interested in utilizing youth players where they fit. Yeah. And I think that's, again, just something that sort of works within the architecture that David Lee is interested in. So the question is, how much does Raphael Wicky actually matter when it comes to the success of this team?
I mean, I think that in the short to medium term, zero.
Zero.
I don't know.
I don't know if I go as low as zero.
You're right. I don't know about zero, but I just don't like. There's not a lot that's going to happen that is dependent upon him personally, right?
Are you one of those 3 CSOs that told David Goss that they could eliminate head coaches?
I mean, I think that no, I'm not.
Okay.
I would probably not go that far. I think that the right head coach has a lot to do with making a successful team, right? I think that you can have a good team without a good head coach, but you cannot have an elite team without a very good head coach. And I think that there are so many. But
you can also have a bad team with a good head coach too.
Oh hell yeah, you can.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that I just think that there are just so many. There are so many issues facing this club and this roster right now that it's kind of like Wicky is like the Pools camp thing, right? It's just something like you have a coach you don't have to worry about. He's a competent coach, let's solve the other problems before we turn our attention back to him. And that's kind of the way that I feel about it. Like he'll do a good enough job. Maybe something clicks and he does a great job. Hooray for that. But more than likely, just that's not going to happen, right? Like just by just looking around the law of averages, right? Like he's probably not going to be out of the park, knock it out of the park, fantastic hire. That's okay, right? That's not what this club needs right now. This club needs somebody to
only one of those every couple years really happens, right. Realistically,
right? This club just needs somebody to manage things until they can get the roster, so they actually have players on the roster first of all, and then they have to work towards getting a balanced roster, and there's just so much else that needs to happen, and so an elite coach is the least of my personal worries at this point, right?
Well, and how important is an elite coach, right? We talk a lot about tactics and how they're used. And then we actually spent some time this year, at the end of this year, talking about how even the best coaches have had to adapt their tactics to the personnel they have, because you cannot be an ideologue. Just ask Wilfred Nancy.
Yeah, doesn't work.
You can't be an ideologue and win.
No, not nowadays. Because when you're an ideologue, being an ideologue makes you predictable, and it's tough to win.
And then even Saint Mirren knows what you're doing, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's I think that there's been a couple really good Soccer Wise podcasts recently. One of them was with Greg Berhalter, and Berhalter sat down with David Goss for like 40 minutes, and even Berhalter admitted that he took tactics too seriously.
Yeah.
And said, at some level, you need to win games.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
I think he was talking more from a fan's perspective.
He was, but he was also saying that results were more important, right? Yeah. Like at a certain level, like you can be tied to your tactics, but if you are not winning, you need to adjust, right? Yeah. And yeah, he was talking more about like in his press conferences, he stopped talking about them because he was like, no one cares about this. I mean, you and I cared about it. David Goss cared about it, but like the fan base at large, Greg Velasquez cared. The fan base at large did not give a shit too much about that. They cared about beating Mexico, and they didn't want to hear about the tactics when they just got thrashed 3-0, right? Like I understand what he was coming from there, but I think he was also recognizing like he had a whole conversation about teams with identity and having a very specific style and an identity and a way that they played. And I thought it was fascinating because he brought up the first example that came to my head is Arsenal. Does Arsenal have a very specific like style or identity? No, they just do a bunch of things good.
I don't know. I kind of think that they do, but like that's a different conversation. But you're right. Their main calling card is that they don't have any weaknesses.
They're not really bad at anything.
Right.
They're really not. They're hard to beat because there isn't really a weakness to expose.
And part of the reason for that is that they have probably the deepest squad in the Premier League, and they have
half the club's injured and they're still beating everybody.
Right, they have fantastic players at every position, and they have fantastic players backing up every position. They have multiple players. They have players who can hurt you in different ways, so it's not all the same. Like they're a very, very well constructed roster, like really well constructed.
Right, and we've seen that in the past with Manchester City when they went on a run that they had just an obscene level of depth at every position and were able to make that happen. Liverpool last year, believe it or not, I think Liverpool last year was helped by the fact that they didn't have injury problems. Like, I really do, and I think that they're struggling
and
now
Arsenal
because...
did.
Yeah, and Arsenal had significant injury problems. Liverpool this year is dealing with a lot of injury problems and had lost some players. So it's just all of that and they brought in new players that don't necessarily all fit together. And
their roster is kind of a mess, which is weird to say after they spent, $300 million on two players, but it is what it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, when they play the same position.
That's champagne problems, baby.
Yeah, it is. I mean, congratulations. I mean, I guess. But I think that, I guess the point that I'm making, or that I was trying to make, is that that tactics are important at a certain level, but also aren't as important as having a good squad.
Yeah. Roster construction is the absolute most important thing, and that's having good players is like that's what it's all about, man.
And Wicky discussed this on the podcast with Bogert where he talked about it. It's like he's like, yeah, you gotta, your DPs have to be good, but your TAM players have to be good, and your homegrowns and your like sub TAM players, like he's like the best teams are the ones that find a way to maximize value out of the lower spots of their roster and get significant contribution from those areas of the roster. And like I find more and more that I'm hearing coaches talk about like the players they have is much more important than the coach's ability to use them. And I don't want to, like, again, the second Soccer Wise podcast that I think all of you should listen to is sort of a roundtable between Bobby Warshaw, David Goss, and Matt Doyle. And Warshaw sort of takes over and does what Bobby does, which sort of changes the conversation and makes you sort of think about like what makes a team good, and what are the, how important is this to actual success. And when I say this, it could be anything, right? But how important are tactics to success? How important is a game model success? It was kind of interesting to hear Bobby kind of go away from the whole game model and tactics thing when I've literally sat in a presentation of Bobby's talking about how teams build game models, and it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. And just to think about how quickly that mindset has changed. And it's like, how important is it that you can build this PowerPoint deck about what my club's going to be versus how important it is that I have all the right players and the right ability to utilize them effectively.
Yeah. I mean, that's so that's really what it's about, and I think that is, in many respects, like the main job of a coach is to put your players in a position to succeed and to hopefully maximize their potential. And I think that is, you know, there are tactical ways to do that, but there is also a lot of man management and vibe management that sort of goes along with that. And I think that is, everybody uses the example of Bruce Arena as somebody who is maybe light on tactics, but more towards the vibes. But
But he also has Dave Sarakin. He has
Right.
Dave Sarakin to handle the tactics.
It's not
and
like
the,
there's
here's
no
where you're supposed to be.
tactics, right?
Yeah.
Right. But it's also, it's putting players in a position to be successful and empowering them to be successful. And that's one of the things that that will freed Nancy, I guess.
Wilfred Nancy.
It doesn't. No, he said that's not the way to pronounce his name. So
He did? When did he say this?
With the Celtic thing when he
Oh,
got hired there. He said
I don't ever
he
watch
said it was
any of that shit.
Wilfried Nancy. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't roll off the
Okay.
tongue, so I haven't.
Does not.
But anyway, like that's that's what.
Like as in like Nancy Drew?
Yes,
Nancy?
yes.
Oh my
yes.
God. Okay.
So
Totally missed that.
So anyway, he empowered his players, right? He empowered his players to be dynamic, especially off the ball, and I think that that is sort of a merging of sort of tactics and vibey things, and I think it's a similar thing that is happening in Vancouver, where those players, which were essentially, that roster is essentially unchanged from Sartini's roster, but those players were I think newly empowered to play with the ball, to use the ball, to play soccer, and not just bunker and counter, for instance. So yeah, I mean, I think it's both of those things. I think it's tactics. Even within the vibey stuff, there's tactics, and even within the tactics, there's some vibey stuff that has to happen. And I think that that you're looking for.
But the tactics, the structure can put players in positions to succeed if you do it correctly, right?
Absolutely.
The whole point of the tactics are to give the players a platform by which to be successful.
100%.
Right? It's not necessarily a means to direct everything that's happening. It's more to give them a structure by which they can rely on that puts them in a position to succeed, to your point.
Absolutely.
But you also have to put the players in positions within the tactical setup for them to succeed. And also, to your point, you need to psychologically pump them up that they can do that. Right? All of that shit happens. But that is what's wild about it. And Warshaw talked about this on the podcast. He talked about the head coach being sort of the CEO of the on-field product. Mm-hmm. And that is much more like what I think you're saying here than necessarily being the guy who implements the stuff. It's more like you are designing the idea of how your business works, which is the on-field soccer. And you are trying to put players in places where they are motivated and feel empowered to do those things and be successful at them. You are being a leader of people.
Yeah.
Not a tactician, not a trainer, not a developer of technical skills. You are a leader of people. And so not only the players on the field, but also your whole staff, you have empowered to handle different pieces of that project so that it becomes something successful on the field.
Yeah.
And that was like, for a guy who's been in business his whole life, right, and has gone through all of these leadership conferences and different sort of things, like, it makes much more sense to me in that way. Mm-hmm. I think even I have often thought about head coaches as being guys who are trying to impart wisdom of how to do things, when realistically what you're trying to do is put the right group of people together that when they all do their thing at the same time, you get the magic moment on the field, right?
Yeah.
And figuring out how to get all those right people together so that they succeed together, right? And I know that sounds a little hokey, and it sounds a little bit like, like
Sports is hokey like that,
non-specific,
though.
but non-specific. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I guess is my point. But it is literally like what these, and that's what David Lee is doing. He is the CEO of soccer operations at Sporting Kansas City. He is trying to build a structure of people beneath him that when each one does their thing, the whole machine succeeds. Right. And again, it's finding the right talent for the right place that can succeed at doing that thing specifically.
Yep.
And Raphael Wicky, not Vicky. I keep saying Tom
Me too.
Bogert always calls it Vicky, but he pronounces his name Wicky.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm saying it right. Raphael Wicky. His job is to get the right group of staff around him, and it sounds like they're working on that as well. That was something that also came out of the pressers, that they're very close to sort of announcing what the larger staff is going to look like around him. Getting all those people in place so that he can focus on having each one of them do their thing that allows all of the players to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to the culture and the player versus the human, et cetera, because as Bobby noted on the podcast, at a certain level, you have to find a way to get the player out of thinking and into flow state.
Yep.
And that's where I think that was the point. Let's wrap it all the way back around to the tactical setup. The tactics are the structure by which you stop thinking about playing soccer and just doing soccer, right? And that is when you get into flow state and you just act. And that is when the positive things happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, what I would say is that coaching is all of the things that you described. And it's really getting a group of individuals to pull together to execute your vision, right? And that's and that requires a certain amount of technical expertise, sure, but it also requires like softer skills like communication and positive constructive leadership and it's
the game is psychological as much as it's physical. In fact, for a lot of these players, by the time they've reached the point that they're professional soccer players like this, you're not teaching them much.
No.
You're telling them what you want them to do, but you're not really teaching them a lot. So it's more about getting the most out of them, getting them to perform at the highest level. And that's much more psychological, I think, than it is physical. And I think that is where, again, it's more about leadership skills than it necessarily is about, tactical ideas. As much as we love tactics, and I'm very fascinated to see what Raphael Wicky's tactics are with this club, once we actually know what the roster looks like, it's still the guys on the field got to play soccer.
That's it, right? That's it.
It's a pretty simple game.
So let's sign some guys to play soccer.
Yeah, and that's really the largest issue at this point is that David Lee needs to sign some fucking guys.
Yep, a lot of guys.
Because they're gonna report on Saturday, and right now there's not many guys.
Yeah,
I think I think they have 5 players making over $300,000 a year on the roster.
Wow.
One of them's Jake Davis.
Wow.
I mean, that would have been fine in 2010.
Maybe,
but, not so much in 2026.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy 6 weeks, right?
It really is, and I do think a lot of movement's about to happen. Like I got the feeling
it better. Like, I mean, we keep saying that, but at some point it's got to really start popping.
Well, I mean, at least from a European perspective, if you were paying transfer fees for anybody, they couldn't leave until the beginning of the month anyway. And unfortunately, the nature of MLS is such that if these players believe they have options elsewhere in Europe, it's going to be towards the end of the transfer window before
Right.
MLS teams are going to be able to get them, because they're going to try. If they think they have prospects elsewhere, they're going to wait and see if that happens. So it's just the nature of the business.
The squad building aspect is really really fascinating, and to see what kind of player profiles and what kind of skill profiles, what kind of age profiles they're going to be pursuing, what kind of like athletic profiles. It's really
I mean,
kind of fascinating.
the couple guys that have been at least rumored are at least right in the wheelhouse of what we'd expect,
Seems
right?
like it, yeah.
Shehu, the Albanian number 6 that plays in Poland, he 100% right in the wheelhouse of the type of player you would expect him to need, a big sort of ball dominant number 6, not
Yeah,
necessarily a tackler, but it certainly racks up the defensive metrics.
sure.
He plays mostly in a double pivot in Poland, but Albanian national teamer that really, but interestingly to him, had not really done much up until this year. And then
Right.
all of a sudden at 27 is like a cannot drop Albanian national teamer that's going to be in those UEFA World Cup playoff spots. And then Cesar Inga, the Peruvian left back. Like, these are very much areas that you would expect. Granted, there's so many areas of need on this team. I guess like anybody would make sense for this club at this point.
We're kind of at that point, right, where it's like, okay,
You could tell me literally any player. I'm
yeah,
like, yep, that makes sense. I mean, honestly, other than striker, I mean, and they need a backup striker,
they do,
right? So
yeah.
and Wiki has run a 2 striker system a fair bit. So like, although you and I have discussed whether or not Shallowy might be good as a second forward, I think he probably could be in a
Yeah.
4-4-2, like a 4-4-2 diamond or a 3-5-2. Like, I think we both agree that he could actually work, especially with Jovic.
Let me just say,
Go ahead.
I take all of that formation talk with a complete and total grain of salt. One, given the source.
I do too, by the way.
One, given the source of that stuff, but also just the nature of and fluid nature of soccer, and the fact that Wiki seems to be a pretty adaptable coach. But I will say that like for me personally, like tactics nerd wise, like the possibility of the 4-4-2 diamond is just like, I'm all about that shit. So I would love to
I
see
mean,
that. I'm not expecting it at all.
you've been crying for it for like 2 years, both for Sporting and for the national team. So like, I mean, it has been.
I just advocate being objective about what your team has and what they don't have, and this team and the national team
Does not have
don't really have
doesn't have
wingers.
wingers.
And so
No
like,
wingers.
why fight that, right? Like
Well, Poch did it a different way. He did the 3-4-2-1,
Sure.
which is
Sure.
another way to sort of.
Which is another thing we've been.
He went
sort
to a
of, like,
box midfield
clamoring
instead
for.
of a diamond, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah, I mean,
that would be
a
great also. But
that's fine.
But we don't have
We don't have
I-
two tens. We don't have tens to do
or
box
or
midfield.
3 center backs.
No,
or,
no,
or
a
2 center
4-4-2
backs.
I mean, technically on the roster there are 2 center backs.
I am only counting Ian James as half a center back, even though he's a grown full ass man. But
He's way bigger than Jansen Miller is.
Oh, he is, absolutely. But I don't know if he's up to play 2,000 minutes or not. So
Well, I don't know either. Like, I mean, he's a
Nobody
literal
knows.
teenager, and teenage center backs. I mean, Noki Banks is finally starting to settle in at Augsburg, but I also think that Noki Banks is a significant. He's significantly beyond Ian James
You
in
think?
profile and capability. So I'm not trying to compare those two players at all. I think that. There's opportunities, right? There's opportunities to do different things. And all I was saying was Shallowy, I think, can operate as a second forward.
100%.
With Jovic, I think they would actually pair pretty well in that type of
I
setup.
totally agree. It could be really, really, honestly, pretty dynamic.
We just sort of got into a conversation. Do we need a second striker? Maybe not. I mean, they're going to need another forward of some kind. Where that comes from, who knows? But maybe it's the 3rd round draft pick. I have no idea. It's probably not. But I think that
It might be
What?
just because there's nobody
No one
else.
else? Yeah. You sound
All
like
the draft picks are
you're sounding
playing.
like Demline. You're sounding like Matt Demline. We have no players. We're going to go into February with 17 players. Like, that's just going to be who it is. I don't believe that's true. I just don't believe that's true. So,
Oh, it's
there,
true.
if there are,
It is true until it's not. That's all I'm gonna say.
if there are only 17 players on the roster when we start the season, I will eat this hat. I
No,
will
you won't.
literally
You'll be
eat
like,
this hat.
no, you won't. You'll be like, oh, realistically, Cody, it doesn't matter. Blah blah blah.
I will
blah.
want you. You are there's a screen. I will literally eat this hat if there are only 17 players on the roster.
Okay.
In when we start the season, there's no fucking way. Absolutely no way. I have too much faith in the professionalism of David Lee to have not signed anyone in the next 6 weeks. Okay. Now, how many he signs in the next 6 weeks? He said double digits. I don't know if that'll happen in the next 6 weeks. I think it'll happen before the window closes. I don't think it'll happen I'm not sure if it'll happen in the next
That would
6
be
weeks.
impressive. Signing double-digit players in 6 weeks. That would be a haul.
The way that he alluded to it seemed like there was a lot of irons in the fire that just had not.
Yeah, I'm sure
sort of gotten across the line, right? And so we'll just have to see, and hopefully,
as long as he didn't
quickly.
say we're punching above our weight or some.
Yeah, he didn't.
Like
he
that.
didn't really say any. There were no cliches. I will tell you that he is by far the most comfortable public speaking employee this club has had in a long time.
Yeah.
He just seems like a dude that's just like, hey, we're just talking.
And that includes ownership, too.
No, I mean, yeah, we had to do the Mike Illig rehearsed red statement at the beginning, and yes,
I want to have fuck you money so I can just show up at like fancy events just dressed like I'm going to Costco,
zip?
Basically. I just want to wear what I wear to Costco all the time.
I don't even know where to go with that.
National press conference. Yeah, I'm gonna put on my my New Balance and my my Wrangler jeans.
I mean, I don't know about New Balance. I mean, it's Adidas, so it's Adidas sponsor. Although I don't know that I've ever seen.
I meant the
Adidas
shoes. I meant
life.
the just New Balance dad shoes.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I'm telling you, Mike. I don't. First of all, he wasn't wearing Adidas. He wasn't wearing New Balance, and he probably had. I mean, Mike's got some fancy sneakers, so there was probably something along those lines. But
have you bonded over sneakers? The two of you, a little sneaker convo.
I mean, once or twice. Yeah,
okay.
Once or twice. Yeah,
you should. I mean, that's
literally the only thing we have in common. But yeah, I think that I'm excited to see what the next week holds. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about some players because we need some players.
Yeah.
We just got done talking about a coach for an hour and 12 minutes and basically come to the conclusion that it doesn't matter until he has players to coach.
Yeah.
So
we're going to keep saying that, and then it's not going to matter until we have like real games to play, and then it's not going to matter until Well,
I mean, and I said this to Matt, like, I really do believe it's true. It's impossible to evaluate a decision until it's been made.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the absence of making a decision is something you can evaluate. But I don't believe you can say that the decision hasn't been made until we reach an inflection point where it cannot be made.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Well, and you can't separate the coach from the context, right? Like coaches coach players, and they have to have players to work with, and so it's impossible to say. Yeah.
Let me ask you this.
What kind
Let me
of
ask you
impact
this.
the coach is going to make when there's still 10 players coming.
Maybe this is the last maybe point we'll make on Wicky, and then we can let it roll. Do you think he's a better option than Carey Zavagnin?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah,
I agree.
I think he's almost. I think he's almost certainly. He's almost certainly better than Carey Zavagnin. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, not almost certainly.
He's coached in the Champions League,
right? Right. Like he has just by virtue of experience alone. I think that is absolutely qualifies him to be better. Sure.
Right. I mean, I think that his experience, regardless of whether or not you think his time in Chicago
Yep.
was his fault or the fault of Chicago being a dumpster fire
Yep.
or any of those things, like just his experience in general is significant compared to Carey. And that's no dig on Carey. It's just reality.
It
like
is
if you
reality.
compare the resumes of those two coaches, it's just not, they're not comparable.
Right. Absolutely.
And whether I personally externally agree, and I don't even know who the whole finalist pool was, whether I personally externally would agree with the fact that Raphael Wicky is the right coach for this job, the guy that's been doing it for 6 years and has hired multiple coaches and has found success with multiple coaches, I do trust at a certain level.
And more importantly, the one who has to work with this person on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
and maybe it's wrong, and maybe he'll have to pivot and move on. And if he does it a couple times wrong, then maybe he's the one gone. That is what happens in these circumstances.
Yep.
But we can't evaluate that until we see results.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's a results-based business. We're just going to have to see what the results are and evaluate them then. I don't understand the need to predictively try to the need to try to predict failure. That is not a thing that I really get behind. It's just not a thing. I prefer to feel good about this club and its potential for success. So I'm not going to sit here and try to predict failure. But I also think we can be realistic about like what the profile is.
How much work has to be done, right? Like
and how much needs to be accomplished before this team can be successful. And they've got a lot left to do. A lot left to do. So hopefully we'll start to hear some more of those things being accomplished, and hopefully it'll happen by next week when we get back together and talk to you more about this team. And until then, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all next week.
Go Sporting.